what we're going to do is we're going to change the oil and filter in this quad. This quad's been sitting, he told me, for 4 years in storage. This oil, he has probably never changed this oil, so it's going to be vitally important that we change the oil and filter on this four-wheeler. This four-wheeler's running pretty good. I took it out and rode it and was really impressed with it. I hadn't ridden a four-wheeler about 3 years or so. I sold all my stuff and moved back into Crouch Rockets, and after riding this four-wheeler, I'm going to end up buying one. So I'm not real sure I'm even going to get a used one. I might just go to the store and buy a brand new one. I haven't decided yet. But this project I really wasn't going to take on any more work from people because I don't really run a shop. I just sell Amsoil, and then everything I work on is all my personal stuff. So this oil change will cover the Arctic DVX400, the Kawasaki KFX400, and the Suzuki LTZ400. This is a 2005 LTZ400, but all those models will be the exact same. So if you watch this video from start to finish, then those models, and I'll put the years in the link below, this oil change will work for that for those models. And we're going to be running the Amsoil 10W40 dirt bike oil, not the ATV oil. If you go to the links below on Amsoil, you can look up your quad and what oil they recommend. For the ATVs, you can really run through Amsoil. You can run the OW40 depending on your climate and conditions. Now, the manual won't state that you can run that, but Amsoil's OW40 will cover up to a 10W40 protection, so you're okay to run that. If it's wintertime, that oil will flow to the top end faster. If it's hotter, you might have some dissipation issues where it may start trying to burn some of that lower weight oil off. Other than that, you could also go to the ATV UTV 10W40, which is completely fine, or you could go to the 5W50, which I don't really recommend. You kind of want to stick in the 40 range, I would say, for this quad. However, those ATV UTV quads by Amsoil is they're okay for these. That oil worked fantastic for these sport quads. That's more of a line of just ATVs. It's more utility based. When you go on Amsoil's website, you'll see a lot of utility quads and whatnot. There's a lot more utility quads than there is market for the sport quads. But once you get into the sport quads, if you have engine modifications, exhaust header, jetting, camshaft, oversized pistons, cylinder head porting, bigger valves, you're going to create more heat, and you're going to end up needing more engine protection. And this dirt bike oil that was designed for motocross riders by Amsoil for the sponsorship for the Amsoil dirt bike riders is what I would run in these sport quads. No matter what sport quad you have, be a Raptor, Banshee, just a number of them. I would run the dirt bike, well, not the Banshee, that's a two-stroke, but I would run the dirt bike oil myself. There's different additives in the dirt bike oil which will give you more confident clutch feel. Depending on where you're riding, where we used to ride around here, you're in the woods, and whether if you're gonna jump the quad out on the motorcycle track, on the motocross track, or you're in the woods, you're going to climb a ginormous hill, and maybe you're coming down a hill, you need to navigate around trees and whatnot. Clutch feel is vitally important. So we're going to run the dirt bike oil for the added clutch feel and engine protection in this sport quad. I really highly recommend it. But what we'll do is we'll get this jacked up on the lift, and this will end the series on the LTZ400. We're gonna warm this quad up and get the engine warmed up so we can get the oil to drain out. minutes. You don't want to do the oil when it's extremely hot. You can hear the fan running. That new aluminum radiator and that Dominator coolant boost that I put in, that Dominator coolant boost will also let the engine get to optimal temperature faster and keep it cooler longer, which is actually really important when you're in the woods, especially with no airflow. So if you're going to order some Amsoil, go ahead and get that oil and get the Dominator boost for sure. And I actually threw some motorcycle octane boost in here, but we'll let this set and I'll get this up on the lift and then we'll start changing the oil. Okay, now first things first, your dipstick for your front oil canister will be underneath the front end of this quad, and what we're going to do is we're just going to put our hand in here and then we're going to remove it, and it's stuck, so I got to get a wrench. So we'll just remove it. There should be a dipstick on this. Yeah, there is. Okay, so we're going to remove the front oil drain plug on the front oil reservoir container, and then we're going to go right to the engine. The front one should be a 12 millimeter, and on the engine it should be a 14 millimeter. And we'll just drain them out. Make sure your engine's warm, that way all the oil will come out of it. And then we'll move to the oil filter side and get the oil filter removed and replaced. And the one thing about the oil filter on these models is go ahead and get your O-ring seals from your dealer for the oil filter cap and internal oil filter O-ring as well. I went ahead and got the spring because it was only a couple dollars. But I'm going to tell you something. If you're going to go ahead and spend the money and invest in a good oil to prolong the life of your quad and basically save your quad's value by running a good oil, make sure you get those seals, because if you throw $30 worth of oil in it and you don't get a new seal and then it starts leaking, all of a sudden you know you're going to run it out of oil. So get the seals, spend the $4 and wait 2 days to get the seals, and then do the oil change. Just let the oil drain out. Then we'll just put the plug back in. Now we're going to remove the bottom side plug too.
That's stuck.
Somebody really over torqued that. Then we'll just clean this plug off and let it drain and reinstall it. What we'll do is we will push this pan aside here and reinstall this plug. Just make sure that you clean the magnetic tip on the end of it. You know what? We're gonna let all that shit drain out of there.
Oh, fucking fantastic.
Then we're going to torque it down. Now for the last bit here, we are going to remove the oil filter cover, and if you look real close, there's an arrow on the top side of this oil filter cover, and that's the way that the oil filter cover is supposed to go on. Now these will be 7 millimeters. And they're on there tight, I'll tell you that. And just crack it and let it drain out of there from the bottom first. There won't be a whole lot of oil, but there'll be more than just pulling it off. Make less of a mess. And there is the spring that I'm talking about. Talking about the spring and the seal, the oil seal here. Sometimes you need to get a pick to get that filter out of there. And I can't believe this. This has actually got a stainless steel reusable filter in it, I believe. And I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to install the paper element filter. Now what I'm going to show you here is on the inside of this engine here, as you can see, there is supposed to be a an O-ring seal in there. So when the filter presses against here, that you make sure that you get a good seal here on the inside of the engine, and there is not one inside the engine here. So this is another reason why you need to go and get your gaskets from the Suzuki, Kawasaki, or Arctic Cat before you get started. That way you know that this process is being done properly. It only costs about $4 or $5 for those gaskets, but you need to make sure that you're doing this right, because you can actually have engine failure if that ends up leaking, and then it's not going to cycle through the oil filter itself, and it'll blow the oil back through the outside of the filter, and it won't get filtered. So we're going to install that new O-ring there after we get this cleaned up. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to place this O-ring back into where it needs to go. And I've got a little fresh oil here that we're going to put on the O-ring itself before we install it. See if I can get some light in here. Might help out a little bit. It's very important that goes in there, because that's the way it was designed. You know, I'm starting to notice that I'm starting to run into people that have watched my videos and want me to work on their stuff, and they think they're smarter than the people that engineered and designed this equipment. I had a guy the other night that showed up, and he purchased some Amsoil from me. And when he did that, his bike was having starting cranking problems, and he had me listen to it when it did it. So as the bike had the cranking problems, I listened to it, and within 3 seconds I knew what it was. He had upgraded the motorcycle to a lithium-ion battery and changed the headlights out to a xenon from a 12-volt system to a ballast operated system, and the electrical current wasn't getting enough to the motorcycle, to the starter and the sprag clutch, and it was when the engine would be on the compression stroke of the engine, the motorcycle wouldn't crank over because it wasn't getting the power. And a lot of people think that those lithium-ion batteries are just, oh, it's so much more cranking power. Yeah, it might be, but that bike wasn't designed for that electrical system. And he tried to sit there and argue with me because he works at a motorcycle shop, and I just went through this with my other Aprilia Mille that I upgraded the battery cables in. And dude, I'm not going to sit there and argue with you over what's wrong with that bike. You know, my dad had me in a race car at 5 years old, and I was turning a wrench at 7. So when I hear that stuff and see that stuff, I'm 100%. I know what the hell's wrong with it, and this is another problem that I have my entire life here. Get all this oil off here, get this new seal on there. One of the main problems that I have is I've my entire life I've let people tell me what to do and that I was wrong and that I couldn't do stuff. And then people, they always were like, oh, you always like all this oddball shit and all this other stuff. Well, I hate to tell you this, but I put up that Aprilia Mille up for sale for 99 cents on eBay and got contacted by a luxury car dealer. And he says, well, I'll take that bike. And he says, what other bike? You got any other bikes? I said, well, yeah, I got a few other bikes. So I've had some bikes in storage. And he said, I'll take every single one of them, which that just reevaluated to myself that there's a market for all this stuff that I like, but I like such this oddball stuff that around here, now you just place your gasket in here, around this area where I live at and I'm from, people aren't into that stuff. They're really just into Harley Davidson parts, you know, for motorcycles. And I've actually been laughed at to my face because I rode a Ducati motorcycle, and these guys on these Harleys, I just don't get it. So basically what it's coming down to is I'm trying to get my house fixed, and I really 100% believe that I'm worth $80 to $90 an hour working on this stuff if I was to go into business by myself. And with my knowledge and how much stuff that I've worked on and all this other stuff, I don't see why I can't do that. So, and if you bring your quad or your motorcycle to me, it's going to be done right. It might take me a little longer to do it, but like right here on these O-ring gaskets, dude, if you took this into a shop, they wouldn't even have changed these O-rings. They would have just taken it in there, changed the oil, and been done with you. But yeah, so that's kind of the goal, is I want to start my own little shop and build motorcycles, and I might get back into the ATV market. But the thing of it is that market isn't here. When I used to work at Stanley Steamer, I've been in more multi-million-dollar houses than most people have seen in their whole lives. So I know who the clientele that I want to deal with are. Like the guy who brought me this lift, that sold me this lift, that had the Ferrari, that owned the Ducati. That's the kind of guy that I need to be doing business with. Not these people that don't have a lot of money, that don't want their stuff repaired properly and want to cheap out on the repair bill because they bought something that cost $7,000, but then they want to sit and argue with you over an O-ring that costs $2 and because they think they're right. Well, it's their bike, but I know what I'm doing. So, but we'll get this other third bolt in here and get this tightened up. So this is just going to take me some time to do this. And the other thing with the opening my shop and my business is I'm 100% debt free as of almost a year ago through the Dave Ramsey program. So I've got to sell off my inventory of motorcycles to fund myself for this next business adventure. So anybody that buys Amsoil, that Amsoil purchase really helps me out because it's helping me basically achieve my dream. But the biggest thing about this dream that I have is that I can't do it where I'm living. I finally realized it. I have to go to a heavier populated area. That I just can't do it here in Illinois. So, okay, so we got our 3 bolts snug, and now we're going to put some oil back into the reserve. Okay, so we're just going to prep the oil here, and actually because of the location of the front oil tank, I'm going to use the nozzle and the adapter that I usually use in the majority of everything that I fill up. You know, these nozzles can be had for about $1, and these the adapter nipple pieces can be had for like $1.60 or something for like 6 of them. Not 100% sure, but I'll put the links below. That way if you order Amsoil, then you can just see there. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and go to the front here and fill this up. Starting to sweat, getting a little agitated. If you do an oil and filter change, it says 2.1. If you just do the oil, it says 2.0. So we're going to put about 2.1, 2.2 in there, and then we'll just run it, check the level, and see where we're at with the dipstick. And then you'll want to run it and then let it set for about 3 to 4 minutes, and then check the dipstick, and then if you need to add oil, run it again, and then double check it. So let's get over here and fill this out. Okay, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to get in the picture here, so we'll just start adding oil to it and make sure that it's not going to leak. And we'll just do this as slow as possible. We're not in a big rush for this. What we'll do is I'll add 2 quarts, and then we'll run it after 2 quarts. Okay, so we almost got this cord in here. Oh, it's starting to fart on me. Might want to get it from a different angle. It might be easier to get it, all the fluid in there. There we go. Go upside with it, between the shock and the front fender. Okay, and we'll go get the second quart here. And we'll go ahead and start adding the second quart. There we go. Like I said, no rush here. The main thing here is I need to get a bigger garage, guys. I got this lift in here, and I have no room to do anything anymore. Like this four-wheeler, I mean, I can't do anything. I can't even move these motorcycles around. I can't park in this garage anymore. And it's super important for me to have a garage so I can get my car in there during wintertime if I'm living here, because my whole life I park outside. So it's a really big deal for me to park in a garage. It's just something I wanted when I bought a house. Now this will take some time with these nozzles, but as you can see, I haven't spilled a drop of this oil onto this engine. And you really, with the wet clutch system on these sport quads, you really need to use a ATV oil. Well, this is dirt bike oil, but an oil that is wet clutch compatible. I watched a video where a guy went and got engine oil for a car. I just thought, oh my God, I'm gonna have to make a video on this. There we go. Got a lot of air in it. There's the 2 quarts there. And now what we will do is we'll start it up. First we'll put this dipstick back in there. Then we'll start it up and let it run for a couple minutes. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to lower this down a little bit, and then I'm going to run the engine now that all the engine oil and filter's replaced, and we'll let it warm up, and then we'll let it set for a couple minutes, and then check the oil again and see if we need to add any oil. Okay, let's get this thing started up here. Okay, and as you can see, we're pretty much done here running the engine oil, the Amsoil. You could tell that the engine oil was starting to break down, that it hadn't been changed for a while, because if you go here, I'll show you the lifter noise. The valves had quieted down when I started running the new oil. So that's kind of an indication also as well, once the oil starts to break down and it's not as well maintained. But other than that, we'll check the dipstick and then probably be done. Okay, we'll just pull the dipstick here and insert it back in. And I'm pretty sure you want to thread it all the way down. And then we will see if we need to add oil. I don't think we're going to. I will tell you this, that internal O-ring that was missing on the oil filter side, if you paid attention, there was actually metal shavings in the bottom of the bottom of the oil pan after I drained the oil, which is not good. If that does not have a good seal on the back end of that oil filter, if you have metal shavings like that, it'll blow past that oil filter possibly and go right into the engine. So it's very important that you put that rear O-ring on that oil filter on the back side. So okay, everything looks decent. So we're pretty much done here. Call the guy and have him come pick this puppy up so I can start working on that other Aprilia. Okay, I'm all finished up, and this concludes the series. If you're watching this video, there'll be a playlist. If you go to my channel and look on playlist, I'll set up a whole playlist. And thanks for watching. If you have any comments, comment, and check the links below. If you want a free Amsoil catalog, just click the links below or go to the Amsoil website, and my dealer number is 554-1460. And if you're a subscriber, thanks for subscribing, and I'm out of here.